I think we've got the perfect keynote to reflect on the importance of that digital consumer for marketers and media owners. Someone who faces challenges that say a lot about the incredible speed at which business moves today, and about how even the most powerful companies out there are forced to evolve their operations as new technologies come on stream, as consumers' media habits seem to change almost daily. Most impressively, while I've just stood up here talking about the problems and the questions, our keynote speaker is someone who's actually come up with some answers. I'm not sure whether to describe Sue Decker as a rising star, as many have done before me, or a star who's risen. As president of Yahoo, she oversees all of the web giant's global operations and has been instrumental in laying out its strategy for the future. You'll hear more about her vision of the internet and her plans today, and about the deals she's already struck, like her brainchild, the newspaper consortium, as well as the deals she's working on now. Before holding this role, Sue served as head of one of Yahoo's two major business units, the Advertiser and Publisher Group, and she's also held the EVP and CFO titles at Yahoo. She had an unusual background for the CFO job, having been a top 10 rated media and advertising analyst, which essentially means she knows a lot more about my job than I do. And she earned the respect of Wall Street and journalists in that CFO role by taking steps to detail how much of Yahoo's revenues came from other .coms, a potential weakness that others chose to conceal. Her candor and her comprehensive understanding of the market we work in are among the reasons why Sue Decker is regularly cited by all kinds of business publications as one of the executives we should be watching in any field. Sue's been a prominent figure on industry boards throughout her career. She was on the board of Pixar Animation Studios until it was sold to Disney, and she's now on the boards of Berkshire Hathaway, Intel and Costco. Just a little bit of extra work for her there on top of Yahoo. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll join me in welcoming Sue Decker.
Thank you, Jonah, for that great introduction. I should have invited my mother if I knew that that was all coming, but thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. There's so many people in the audience that have been long-standing partners of Yahoo, really since 1996, when this whole online advertising and online consumer phenomenon started. So I thank you for coming and for being our partners. When I was thinking about what to talk about today, I was thinking back about what we've all been through together, and a lot happens in 10 or 12 years, and a few of the highlights that made me smile I thought I would share with you, which are remembering the days of pop-ups. Everybody remembers those. Pop-unders. We even had pop-throughs and pop-overs, so we fully explored the pop culture together. We've had interstitials, we've had superstitials, and we even had super-duper-stitials along the way. And who can forget all the acronyms that started with B2B and B2C, and then P2P became the rage of the day. Together, we asked questions like, how many hits am I going to get? We asked questions like, will the CPM affect my CPA? And is the CTR raising my CPC? And how all of these will affect my ROI. We've gone through cookies taste good, to cookies invade your privacy, to nobody cares about cookies at all. And we've gone through just about every company you can imagine. Companies like Pets.com, remember that? Remember Pointcast, Cosmo, or Boo.com? I don't know about you, but I'm still waiting for my groceries to arrive from Webvan. I've been waiting for 7 years. I'm beginning to think they may not be coming. So as we think about the future, there's also all the buzzwords out there, even concluding with 2.0, the name of this conference. But I don't want to make fun of that, because I'm absolutely convinced we're going to hit a 3.0 in another year, and I want to be invited back. As we think about all of what we've gone through together, and we can joke about the past, I can't say that we're not going to be standing here 5 years from now having the same kind of comments about what happens in the next 5 years. But I do think that we are on the cusp of a real transformation. Jonah hit that a little bit as it relates to consumers. Consumers out there create the inventory that advertisers are trying to match in terms of receiving the best audience. And there's a whole revolution on the Web 2.0 side, on the consumer front, where increasingly major companies are moving from providing an environment in which the consumers come solely to their sites and increasingly providing platforms for consumers to create their own experiences. And this has led to the social media phenomenon, the great engagement of videos on YouTube, and all of that as a massively exciting opportunity for how consumers can engage and enrich their lives on the internet has created a huge problem and an opportunity for advertisers. Because if you think about it, it's showing like a weed, but extraordinarily difficult as an advertiser to find exactly the right match of consumer without a lot of work. So that's what I really want to talk about today, is that I really think that we're on the transformation of, on the cusp of transformation in display type of inventory. And that inventory represents 90% of all inventory out there. And that transformation has to happen on 3 levels. It has to happen with the demand side of the equation, with advertisers and agencies. It has to happen on the supply side of the equation, with all of the inventory that publishers are offering. And it has to happen in the middle, that magic that allows the right advertiser to achieve the perfect connection with the right audience. And what Yahoo is doing is trying to focus on all 3 of those, and I have a few announcements today that I want to talk about, and also reference a few announcements we've made to try to make some of those points. So let's start with just some background. If you think about it, the internet started in terms of a monetization vehicle with what we call display advertising. And what I mean by that is the inventory that display runs on. It could be display inventory, could run a display ad, it could run a video ad, it could run a text ad. It's really format agnostic. There are so many different ways to reach your consumer through advertising on display inventory. Non-display inventory is search inventory. And what's really interesting is after the first 5 years of the internet, which was primarily driven by display, even display ran on search inventory if you remember, most of the innovation in the last 5 years has come from search. Search found a way to, through an open and transparent pricing mechanism and an easier way to buy and sell and a more automated way to buy and sell, produced a huge industry which today represents a little less than half of the $40 billion of advertising sold online. There was enormous growth once the friction was unlocked for advertisers, large and small, to reach their consumers in a very targeted way through intent, knowing intent through a search box. Going forward, the opportunity in all of the rest of the inventory outside of search is actually much larger. I mentioned before it's 90% of all inventory. It's growing faster, and it represents about 60% of the industry dollars today. So there's an enormous opportunity to try to close that gap in terms of the volume of inventory out there and the revenue that that inventory generates if we as an industry can apply the same art and science to display type of inventory that the industry provided to search. So let me give you an example of one thing that we're trying to do. I'm going to talk about 3 different areas of innovation. One is platforms, products, and technology. I'll start with that, and then I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing on the publisher side, and then conclude with what we're doing with the agencies. About 2 months ago, we announced AMP by Yahoo. And AMP is an online ad management platform that will be launched in the third, fourth quarter to the newspaper consortium that we've signed up. What it does is fundamentally takes today's way of buying display, which is primarily through publishers that have internal IT systems, and the advertiser or the agency has to go to every single publisher and try to cobble together a campaign, which can take 2 weeks at a time to find all of the inventory and the avails and faxes and phone calls. It's a very non-technical process, as many of you know in the audience. The goal here is to create a web-based hosted platform where all marketers can come in through the same interface and within minutes, literally, place your campaign across multiple publishers in an open and transparent pricing environment. Fundamentally, that's what happened in search. And this is a much harder problem to do in all other inventory, because if you think about it, search is a form of advertising that runs on one kind of inventory, algorithmic search inventory. It is one format, it's a text-based format, has one form of pricing, which is an auction, and one form of targeting, which is through search intent through the search box. In all of the other forms of inventory, the complexity is much, much greater. multiple forms of pricing, multiple types of inventory, multiple types of targeting, including behavioral, demographic, geographic, in addition to intent or content landing page, and multiple formats. So it stands to reason that that kind of revolution first happened in search, and now we think the industry is ripe for that to happen in display, and that's what AMP is trying to address. And that is, it's not a dream anymore, it is a dream for us, but it is coming out relatively soon, and we're already starting to engage with some lighthouse customers in the newspaper consortium. Speaking of which, we are announcing today that we now have added 93 more newspapers to the consortium. That brings our total up to close to 800, 4 times as many as when we first announced the deal in November of 2006. So we think this is a validation of what the industry sees as the next generation platform, and we couldn't be more excited to welcome these new newspaper companies and publishing properties into the fold. The second example I want to talk about in terms of new products and technologies is something we're also announcing today, which is the Yahoo Circular Retail Program. The idea here is to take the enormously successful retail product of the newspaper circulars and extend that onto an online environment with the ability to target precisely and customize the message. So we're working with Shop Local, which already works with the newspaper publishers on taking retail circulars and creating the right online version. And we are combining that with Yahoo Smart Ads technology, which fundamentally allows a very personalized marketing message. It partners with the agencies on the creatives, generates those on the fly based on known user intent on Yahoo. So you can imagine this is a way to solve a proverbial needle in the haystack problem of the industry of how do I get the mass and scale that works so well in a retail circular, but customize the particular circular by geography and by consumer intent. So we're really pleased to announce that, and also enormously delighted that Target has agreed, is one of the first customers of that product. We've been doing some testing with them, and they found that it significantly enhances their campaigns. So we're welcoming them into the broader Yahoo fold. We've worked with them before, but we're really excited to have them as one of the lighthouse customers for this new product. The second area I want to talk about in terms of how we're trying to help the industry reduce friction and innovation is on the publisher side. Today, it is extraordinarily difficult as a publisher, because of this fragmentation, to utilize and combine the inventory they have, highly valuable inventory, and to combine it with inventory of like audiences of other publishers. There's no easy way to do that, and so that limits the monetization potential for publishers, and it also limits deep engagement with advertisers. So to that end, what Yahoo's been focusing on is how do we aggregate premium audiences, striking that balance between the right type of monetization and the right kind of user experience, and provide greater access to audiences for publishers, which enhances ROI for the advertiser and yield for the publisher. And to that end, we've forged a number of pioneering partnerships for a premium publisher network, starting with eBay. A couple of years ago, we added Comcast, and many, many others. And today we're announcing a deal with Walmart. We couldn't be more pleased. We've worked with Walmart for many years. What we're now working with them on is they've been an advertising client for us. Now they're a publisher client. And we are going to be exclusively selling display and video inventory on their site. What's totally exciting about this, and for the advertiser, is that when you combine the inventory that we have on Yahoo Shopping, and you combine the inventory that we have on eBay with now the inventory on Walmart, an advertiser can reach 76% of the retail audience through Yahoo now. And we couldn't be more pleased as one of the major advertising categories to launch Walmart into the fold. We're also really focused on how to surface premium content in an automated and easy way. And to that end, we recently announced a deal with CNET, in which we not only are selling ads on their site, and they actually are distributing their ads and selling their ads on our site, but we're also surfacing the best of their content in Yahoo News and Yahoo Technology to our users. So there's an example of a multi-level partnership across cross-selling and across content. To that end, we also announced a deal with CBS recently, in which Yahoo will host and stream CBS's video content, combining with Maven Technologies. This is a new acquisition we have that makes syndication and aggregation of video content very simple. This combines with the content we have with Hulu, NBC, CNN, all of the major sports franchises. And you can imagine if we can surface that kind of content on Yahoo, that's great for our users because they will have a more engaging and relevant experience, but we're also channeling the fire hose of our traffic back to our partners who can monetize on their sites. All this will be freely available and advertiser supported. The last area I want to talk about, in addition to the platforms and technology between sellers and buyers and the publishers, is the advertising agencies. The goal here is to make it easier to buy for advertisers and advertiser agencies. And to that end, a couple of weeks ago, we were really thrilled to announce a partnership with WPP Group, allowing them greater access to inventory and enabling them to sell digital advertising across the Yahoo family of properties and on Right Media Exchange more efficiently. And today, the final announcement I want to make is that we are adding Havas Digital into the fold as another major strategic multi-year partnership, and effectively providing them with the technology infrastructure for their new media trading business. They will be also adopting Right Media, and they will be an early adopter of AMP. The AMP platform that I talked about earlier, the first lighthouse group of customers with the newspaper consortium, and as we get toward the end of the year, we're going to start expanding that to the ad agencies and broadening its availability to the whole ecosystem. So on that note, I'd like to conclude by just saying we think there's an amazing opportunity out there. We've all come a long way. There's a lot of dollars that have been attracted to the internet, no doubt. But when we look forward and we think about how much easier all this could be, we are absolutely convinced that many, many more dollars will be released onto the online medium. IDC just put out a recent stat that advertising online from 2008 to 2012 is expected to grow at 8 times the rate of advertising overall. And if you fast forward out to what that means by 2012, internet advertising is projected to be the second largest medium behind direct marketing and ahead of actually newspapers and television. And it stands to reason because of how fast the audience is growing, how engaged the audience is, and how much time consumers are spending using the internet to enhance their lives. We at Yahoo feel the best way to take advantage of this opportunity is to partner with all of you and with the industry. The deals that I announced today across Walmart, Havas, the Newspaper Consortium, and the Yahoo Retail Circular Program are examples of that, as are deals we've announced recently with CBS and CNET, and of course the major initiative of our company for the last year has been to produce this AMP platform. All of that we think is a way of working with very specific customer needs, very specific publisher needs, and creating the platform that ultimately brings the promise of what Ad Age is calling advertising 2.0. And as a result, we really do think this is just the beginning. So thank you for your help with us in this process, and we at Yahoo are totally looking forward to the years ahead and what we'll call a renaissance in display advertising. Thank you. And with that, I think Jonah is now going to grill me.
Enough different bits of news there. And lights up. I know when I sit down it's tempting to put the lights down, but at least for Sue's sake. A lot of news there for the journalists and Twitterers and so on in the audience. Although the lack of wireless down here might be.
Yeah, we were joking that actually you guys will have to listen to us because no one can get their Blackberries. But maybe the Twitter feeds are working.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see. I want to come back, obviously, to some of those new announcements, the platforms and so on. But you didn't talk at all about you or about advertising. But we should just open up. I mean, you effectively, I guess, only spent 2 years really sort of focused on the advertising and media industry. If you've learned one thing, if there's one thing that surprised you, what do you feel you've learned in those 2 years?
Well, I'll say in some ways this is a kind of return to advertising, but local.
We've got balls,
yeah, I'm all
Kleenex.
I've got tissues.
It's a brave effort.
Cough drops, scalpel, whatever I need. So as you said in your outset, I spent my first 14 years of my career focused on advertising. And a fact I haven't shared with you, I actually had a subscription to Ad Age from 1986 to year 2000 and didn't miss an issue.
What's happened since then?
And then there was a gap where I became CFO. And now I'm back on the Ad Age subscription in the last few years.
Thank you. Thank you.
But this is really a love that I've had for many, many years. And I would say my biggest observation is it's so easy to feel like we are on the cutting edge and that all of the amazing innovation has just happened in the last 5 years. And I'm absolutely convinced that the biggest innovation, we're going to look back in 5 years and say, advertising in those years on inventory outside of search was like black and white television. I mean, there's so much more coming ahead, and we use the analogy sometimes that it's hard to describe AMP. It's even hard internally to describe AMP if you haven't used it. It's sort of one of those things that you know it when you see it and you use it. And we feel like the experience is almost like what TiVo brought to DVRs. It's hard to explain, but when you actually use the platform, you think, oh my God, I could have had a V8. It's so much better than how we do it today. So I'm just totally pumped and excited about what's out there, and it really leverages Yahoo's strengths. We've spent a lot of time in the last few years talking about getting up to speed in search and getting competitive, and there's been a lot of, we've certainly had our share of press recently. But the story that hasn't been written is the innovation that's to come, and we feel like we're right on the cusp of it.
So, I mean, you've mentioned you've certainly had a lot of press, and for some pretty obvious reasons. Talk a little bit, if you can, about what you can tell us about where you're at with the Microsoft deal. Obviously, it broke down, it went away. A lot of people are reporting you are talking again. Where are you up to in terms of your thinking about Microsoft and talking to Microsoft?
Well, it's a legitimate question. It's certainly gone through a number of gyrations. They made an offer, and our board said they didn't feel it was an attractive enough value. Our board's very focused on maximizing shareholder value and has a strong sense of the product roadmap that I shared a little bit with you about today. Then Microsoft said they might drop the price. Then they said they wanted an answer by a certain date. Then they said they're no longer interested, and most recently they've said that they're talking with us about various strategic partnerships, which is true. So there are ongoing engaged conversations. There are many ways in which a combination with Microsoft could be very beneficial to the industry and to Yahoo and to shareholders. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to having an alignment on value, and our board has expressed their views on that.
But it's interesting that you say value, because price was clearly the stumbling block, and the stumbling block that Yahoo cited, and that was publicly cited. You've also been on the record saying it was about more than just price. Can you elaborate at all on what you meant by that?
Sure. The price was the first variable that the board has to entertain, but there's also certainty of value, what the consideration is, whether it's cash or stock or some sort of consideration, and certainty of closing, which would reflect whatever regulatory scrutiny it might invite. So there's a whole series of issues that did not get really very discussed because we didn't get through the price door, but there were many issues that had not yet been resolved, and were something ever to occur, those would need to be resolved.
I don't want to get stuck on the corporate stuff. I know you've got PR people here who wrestle me off the stage.
They'll kill me too.
But I mean, you did mention there the strategic partnership with Microsoft, or that you're at least talking about strategic partnerships with Microsoft. There's also been talk about whether you could come up with a strategic partnership with Google on the search side. And I'm listening to you here, and it finally seems like a focus is emerging from Yahoo. If you sort of follow the thread through those announcements, there's a focus there on...
Take that as a compliment. Even the finally part.
You know what? It is. I think lots of people would feel that there's been the focus has been divided. No, I was actually reinforcing it. I was just trying to do it in a nicer way. Maybe I was too blunt. No, but I do think it really felt like a focus was emerging there on display, and I wonder whether, someone said to me yesterday, I was talking to a CEO of one of the digital ad networks, and he said, I believe Yahoo's problem, this is always a bit tricky, pretend it was someone else said it, not you, but he said, I believe Yahoo's problem and Microsoft's problem and so on is that, they're bringing knives to the Google gunfight when, obviously as a digital ad network guy would say, when display is where the opportunity is are we finally sort of starting to see Yahoo focus on that, and does that mean the search part will become something that will be done in partnership with Google?
Well,
is that a long enough question?
It was beautifully and artfully asked. So I think on the first part of the question, in terms of the focus, the answer is yes. We are very focused on leveraging Yahoo's strengths with creative, with relationships, with strategic marketing. A lot of what I've talked about, there's been a debate, if we move to a more automated way to buy and sell and an exchange, is that going to take the creativity out of the process? Is that going to devalue brands? And we think just the opposite. We think we need to unleash the creativity, unleash the ability of the ecosystem to be thinking about building brands more creatively online. And so much of our time these days gets absorbed in the back office functions of just trying to get the damn ad up to the right customer. So so we think that the time is now for that to happen. As a company, we felt we had to get our search assets up to industry competitiveness before we did this. As I mentioned, the search innovation is really a precursor to this, to understand how to target most effectively with user intent, how to maximize value on that type of inventory, how to price effectively with an auction. And all of those are a subset of this bigger online advertising platform that we're accomplishing. So there was a sequence to all this. We did feel we had to get up to competitiveness. We feel we've done that. We're starting to innovate on search now. We recently launched Search Assist last fall, which I've great reviews from customers. We just launched Search Monkey, which is an open way for developers and businesses to innovate on the search listing. So instead of the standard blue link that comes up, we can have a much more rich engagement with employing video and pictures and multimedia formats. So I would say search is very much a part of our vision, and we intend to be a principal in search in addition to being a principal in display. There has been a lot written about our test with Google. That was one of our board of directors, when we got the offer from Microsoft, went through a very thorough and diligent process of evaluating all opportunities to make sure we could maximize shareholder value. And it's no secret, we've been very open that while we've made tremendous progress with Panama, starting to close the gap, which we estimated at 100% in terms of monetization ability of search queries, we've closed that, we think, by 30% in the US over the last year. There's still a ways to go. And so it's a matter of timing and speed of how do we close that gap and deliver the right financial value to shareholders and also have the investment funds to accelerate our strategy. So we looked at that alternative. It did inform how the board responded to some of the past overtures. And I don't have anything else to say today about that.
So search is clearly a part of, as you said, it's part of getting the display product right. But what you're saying is you do see yourselves as well operating as a standalone, having a standalone search offering.
Yeah, we think display, search is important in two ways. One is the algorithmic product, and the search queries are fundamentally valuable to understanding what a consumer cares about. And that is equally useful to advertising that runs on non-search inventory or display or video formats as it is to advertising that runs in search. So certainly algorithmic search is fundamentally critical. And on the monetization of search front, we think that is one of many forms of approach to monetization, and our new platform will incorporate all of that over time. We have sequences of launches. The first launch that we're going to have later this year will not incorporate search into its first version, but we have a roadmap over the next couple of years to which that can happen.
Let's come on a little bit. Everything I've read in terms of you do focus on this idea of friction, and obviously you're mentioning it there with the vast digital deal. It was mentioned with the WPP deal, the idea of eliminating friction. What do you see as, I guess, the challenges in the friction, the challenges in the display market right now? And giving you a chance to plug it a little bit, but how are your new products actually eliminating those or overcoming those challenges?
So I think one of the ways to make it more tangible is to make the comparison with search, because search is a much easier form of advertising to buy today. And it really comes down to two things. One is the fragmentation of inventory. In search, through Google and Yahoo together, an advertiser can reach basically 80% of all the inventory available. You don't have to go to multiple different parties to cobble together a campaign. So right there, that's easier. So if we could figure out a way to aggregate more inventory in display in an easier way, that would, we think, provide a lot of value. And our goal is, today Yahoo touches demand of roughly 15% of the industry, and our goal is to move that to 30% over the next several years through partnerships with premium publishers. So that's one important factor. A second important factor is just the way the industries grew up. All of the little sites out there and big sites out there that big publishers have their own sales channels. They've been selling their own display type inventory for years. And there's an investment in that infrastructure that already exists today. In search, that wasn't true. Most publishers outsource everything in search, from sales to serving to the ultimate delivery of the ad. A display platform is going to have to recognize the investment in the industry that already exists with all these sales channels. And so that's why we're launching this as an ASP platform in which publishers can combine their own inventory and use their very strong sales forces and capabilities of understanding their industry to bundle that with inventory of other like publishers. And we think that will increase, if you have more buyers and more sellers and a more open and transparent pricing environment, we think that will absolutely cause the industry to flourish and grow at rates that it hasn't been able to in the past.
But do you end up in that case with, those publishers are holding back their best opportunities, people, and you end up with a huge transparent marketplace, a much more efficient way of doing business, finding the audience you want, but in a sort of remnant inventory kind of way. Is that going to be a problem for you?
We actually feel that, almost like, we use a lot of financial analogies to this, but you have a world where there are multiple buyers and sellers doing direct transactions. It is, no matter how high quality the goods that they're buying and selling are, it's not going to be as good a marketplace as if you have an open stock market type environment. Now, an open environment accommodates all forms of value of inventory and makes it more transparent and easier to buy. It doesn't mean that all forms of inventory suddenly become the same value. It means that it's easy to see that value. It's easy to match that value from the advertiser side or the agency side to the publisher side. And it creates much more visibility into how to actually achieve your marketing objectives. We actually think it's likely to increase the value of all inventory, to have a much more open, transparent, engaging experience as a way to buy and sell and match. And it unleashes the ability to really focus on differentiation. In fact, differentiation and creative becomes much more important in that environment when you have an open access to all publishers.
So you don't see it as commoditization, but you will still, creatives, they still want, today the marriage of media and creative is so important. They want bespoke opportunities, they want to build their own opportunities. That's how they see, truly branding online. And those networks don't deliver that. What's Yahoo doing to deliver those kind of true branding opportunities, the things that the creative would get really excited about?
Yeah, I announced a couple today in terms of how we're going to use CNET's content, how we use CBS's content, how we're using the Maven platform. We see, just like in financial markets, there are lots of different ways to buy and sell. There are lots of different products. Some of them are much more sophisticated than other products. We see it's hard to buy video today. Companies can't get enough inventory. That's a problem. If we can surface more high quality inventory across our network and across our publishers' network and aggregate more demand, that's got to be good for the industry in terms of creative. Today it's scarce, it's hard to do, and that's what we're trying to do, is unleash the ability of the market to surface that very best creative and best content.
But that's still the volume, I guess. Is there an aspect there where, do you feel that Yahoo has a close enough relationship with the different brand builders and with those creatives to have them create, it may be that they're actually creating content in partnership with you? I mean, is that happening? Or is it really about creating these different, essentially, marketplaces?
You're talking about the content side, sort of the user side. Every publisher has an opportunity now to surface more and more creative content, as do we. The platform we're talking about is more of a marketing concept of how you reach that creative, but the amount of creative online is, in terms of content, is only growing very, very rapidly, with consumers creating their own content in many cases, and some of the owners of creative, increasingly creative content, finding ways to surface that across multiple publishers to attract more consumers. So I think that the automation in the industry, the Maven platform, for example, is a wonderful way with less friction to surface the very best content of the web.
Let's talk a little bit about that Walmart deal, because that, I mean, strikes me, we obviously talk a lot in our days about the whole idea of marketer becoming media owner as something 5 or 6 years ago, I think was really brought to everyone's attention when Steve Hire was then at Coca-Cola said people should be paying us rather than us paying these media owners. We've got all these cans, we've got this massive presence. Walmart is obviously one of those where everyone thinks of them as a media owner. Did you just turn them into an enormous power in the media owner space?
Well, what we're doing with Walmart is we're selling their display and video inventory. So one of the interesting parts of this whole ecosystem is companies that may have started as an advertising client for Yahoo, looking to reach their audiences and sell their products and engage them in their brands via Yahoo and other companies, now are also some of our most important publishers. Walmart.com has a wonderful site, and they use that site to engage with their consumers. And what we're trying to do is help them with another revenue stream there, which is sell their advertising. And we think we can do that very effectively, given our sales channels and our access to demand, which is very, very great. So it should increase their opportunity both as a retailer and as an advertising vehicle.
And that was how you sold them on it. I mean, they've been notoriously with their in-store networks. They've been notoriously guarded about who's allowed to actually sell and control that media eventually. But it was just the access to a range of advertisers and the tools that made it appealing for them.
Sure, I think they ultimately saw that they believe and we believe that we can produce a bigger business together than separately. And that's one of the interesting things about the evolution in the online industry is it kind of defines the lines and rules between and among companies. And what I think we've all learned over the last 5 or 10 years is that the more closed the approach, the less valuable the opportunity. The more we can open it up and attract the very best of the demand on the web to the very best and most relevant site, the more transactions are going to happen, the more advertising revenue is going to come in, and the greater the ROI on all that. So I think I hope it's a win-win, and certainly our experience with other similar partners like eBay and Comcast have been very, very positive.
I still want to get to this notion of brand because I do think it's important in the context of advertising. It's a very fluffy concept. I mean, can I ask you personally, I mean, that's one of those things as a CFO, that's intangible. Do you believe you can build brands online, and what are, you've talked about the reduction of friction, you've talked about the systems, but what are the other things that we need to do today to make it more appealing to a Procter & Gamble, to a Unilever, to try to build their brands online as opposed to just be transactional?
You know, I think, well, one thing I think we do need to do is get rid of the friction. So we've talked a lot about that. So that the industry focus can be much more on the very question you're asking. And one of the things that's, I think marketers are finding online that we're all observing is that with the advent of social media, as consumers are increasingly influenced by the opinions and preferences of people they care about, there are many ways to surface those kinds of preferences, and they're making buying decisions based on what they're hearing from their friends. So how do you go engage the consumer as the agent to be your brand advocate? How do you get the consumer to be excited and represent a referral in ways that we haven't done before? And you know, one of the things we found is that across Yahoo, there are so many different ways to do that. You know, you could take you could look at how many searches people might be doing for L'Oreal. L'Oreal could then find how many groups on Yahoo are talking about makeup products. There are multiple touch points. There are multiple questions on skincare in Yahoo Answers. So there are ways to reach consumers and engage with them to build brands in ways that we've never seen before. And that's where the exciting creativity comes. If we're spending all our time on the back room, we can't get to that. But we're really excited talking to various marketers about where are they on Yahoo? Where are they on other publishers? What questions are they asking? Which ones are the ones that are so deeply engaged that they are likely to be your biggest advocates and be the place that you can ultimately send your message and influence more people. So that is what it's all about.
I want to give the audience a chance to see if there are any questions out there as well in a minute. One thing I would say to you, and again it comes back to this question of what is Yahoo today and where is it focused. There was a while, I guess, I'm sure people like us at ad age got very excited about the idea of Yahoo having a Lloyd Braun. The idea, it seemed like Yahoo was going to become essentially a pure play media company, someone who created content, corralled audiences and sold advertising against that. Is Yahoo now shy? If the Lloyd Braun experiment wasn't seen as working, is Yahoo now shy of the notion of content creation? Is it all about aggregating user-generated content today, essentially?
Ultimately, a closed approach. We don't think the consumer can be corralled. We just start with that. And well, no, I think that's actually exactly the point of what we're trying to do is we started as a company that aggregated audiences and acted as part of the journey and part of the destination. We took them to things we thought they were interested in. But the industry has evolved in a way that we can now provide platforms, and others can provide platforms, and APIs and RSS feeds and ways for consumers to actually create their own content. It's almost sort of like the wisdom of the crowds. Ultimately, it is now in the hand of the consumer, and their collective innovation around the world and their understanding of what they want is probably going to be better than anything we could program and think about up front. So our ambition is to provide the right kind of platform to attract the most consumers to engage with our site. We care about being a part of the journey every single day. We don't feel we're going to be the destination every day. We think of search as a paradigm. People come to search to get to something else they're looking for, but they come back to search every single day, multiple times, and that's what we call a starting point. We have several starting points at Yahoo that collectively engage the largest audience. We want to provide them with the tools and the capability to publish, to express, to share with audiences that are and consumers that are relevant to them. And as well, our vision of advertising has significantly enhanced beyond our four walls to how do we provide a platform for the industry to take out the friction. We can match, if we can provide those platforms for consumers to express their imagination and improve the way they live, the way they work, the way they love. Something like 12% of all marriages last year happened from people who met online. So they're amazing stats about how consumers are living this day, today and using the internet. We can do that, and we can match them to the industry's advertisers. Whether these are on Yahoo or not is our ambition, to create the largest marketplace of buyers and sellers in the world. And we can
do you really feel you have the tools? I mean, if you talk about, for example, creating applications, I know that you now have a platform there for developers who do want to create applications. Why would I create an application with Yahoo? As a user, what are the tools that you feel are going to appeal to me, whether it be to create an application or to operate in a way that's kind of like being part of the social graph, creating content almost in partnership with Yahoo? What are you offering on that?
Well, I appreciate the question because most of my comments today were about the advertising side, but we have an equally exciting strategy on the consumer side, and it gets right to the heart of your question, which is, I will say, before saying, in the past, Yahoo has not made this easy for consumers. We have the largest latent social network in the world. It is dormant right now because we haven't made it easy. We have 250 million email relationships and email addresses. We have tens of millions of people on groups. We have enormous information on Flickr about what people care about, answers, and on down the line. But historically, we were managed around the silos of the various properties. What we're doing now is completely rewiring Yahoo. We are reducing all of those user profiles to one, and we are igniting and linking that social graph across Yahoo. So to your question, the attraction to developers is, my God, you have a place where you can write once and you can publish to 500 million, 600 million consumers. There's no other network of that scale. So it's extremely, we've gotten great feedback from the developer community on being able to write one app and on our platform and ignite that graph. And as a consumer, today there are some great social network experiences. We're not trying to be another one. We're trying to ignite social connectivity within Yahoo. What the social networks don't have today is context. So the more friends you have on Facebook or people on MySpace, the less relevant it all becomes, because you're opening up the circles to more and more consumers. And when you flash what they're interested in, it may or may not be what you're interested in, and it's hard for a marketer to figure out exactly how to convert them in an economic way. If we can ignite the social graph in Yahoo Music, and I see what music videos you're interested in, and you're my friend, then that's going to matter to me. That's going to matter to me in a context that's relevant. If I find out when I'm in Yahoo Sports that Todd Tress, who I see in the audience, has just picked a player for his fantasy team, that's going to matter to me, and it's going to matter in context. And so we feel like if we can light up the social graph within Yahoo at a scale that's never been achieved, we'll attract some of the best developers in the world. So this is not available today. This is something that we're planning to launch the pieces of later this year and early next year, but we couldn't be more excited. And we start with a hugely quality audience and at scale that no one else has.
Will it have that front end in the shape of like a Facebook, where you can actually bring that information together as a consumer, where I can actually see all the information you have on me? Because I may have pursued different interests, which you're saying I've essentially signed up for separately, but you see it having that kind of front end as well?
You know, there's no shortage of different ways to deliver that. We're going to start with surfacing relevant social connections with each of the various verticals that Yahoo has. But you can imagine our homepage today delivers the same content to every user. There is a time in the future, and we're experimenting with this now, that not only can we serve ads that differ by user based on what we think their behavior or their intent is, but we can serve different content. You can get a different Today module than I get that might have college hoops. I might have American Idol. We can surface different content. We can also create personalization techniques.
Rather than creating a whole new brand, which is bringing together, look over here, this is a social network.
We're really, we're not looking to create a new brand for Yahoo. We're trying to create an engagement and an experience that becomes a starting point. And how that looks and feels is there's all sorts of different ways we can do that.
Do we have any
Did everyone hear the question?
No.
I'm not sure I did. Questions about how cable operators banding together would be an opportunity or a challenge for Yahoo in the future. You know, I think that we are primarily focused today on the online industry. You know, some people in our competitors in our position are also focused on how they sell advertising online and offline in partnership with the industry. And I wouldn't rule that out at all. I think there's many opportunities, but our focus today has been on the .com sites, on the online sites, the newspaper consortium. You can imagine that being extended to local television, to local cable. We think we can take the fragmented difficulties and the problem with selling local out of the equation by using a platform. Ultimately, we may partner with a number of traditional media companies in a lot of different ways. Today, we're really focusing on their online sites as we are with Comcast. Thank you.
Speaking about Twitter, by the way, the other day on Twitter, a friend of mine living in the valley, he works in Yahoo at the time, he tweeted that he saw on Silicon Valley an airplane pulling an advertisement for Yahoo.
And you think that's funny?
But talent has clearly been an issue, as it is for many companies. Do you want to talk a little bit about?
You attract developers. We're familiar with them here in New York.
Repeat the question.
Okay.
Yeah,
Microphone.
There was a plane in the valley that was pulling an ad, pulling an ad for Yahoo, appealing for people to join the company. And I guess the question is that how you attract people today? And is this indicative of a chronic shortage of talent in the marketplace?
Well, I'll say we're not shy about using all forms of marketing to attract great talent. You know, a lot's been written about the question of, you know, how hard is it to attract talent in an environment in which Yahoo's operated for the last 4.5 months, when every other day there's another headline, and the headline often doesn't have anything to do with what products and services we're driving to the marketplace. And you know, I think that's a fair question. I think the positive news is that the offer from Microsoft and all the attendant news that's followed has really been a galvanizing force for our employees. It would be a different story if we weren't on the cusp of launching some of the most exciting products in Yahoo's history. And that didn't happen by accident. A lot of the seeds were planted last year in terms of realigning our priorities and putting the investment behind the advertising platform of the future and putting our consumer resources behind what we're calling Yahoo Open and Social that we just talked about. So there's a level of excitement by our employees in showing the world what we can do, and with even greater sense of urgency than we had before. Our turnover rates have not changed. They've been relatively stable throughout. We hired more than 600 people in the first quarter. We have not released our second quarter and talked about that yet. So we're still hiring very aggressively. It's probably a little harder to hire in an environment where people don't know necessarily what the ultimate direction of the company is. But we're still hiring very, very aggressively and are always open to the very top talent as our strategy's evolved, and it requires new kinds of skills and techniques and folks, and we've attracted some great people in the last 6 months.
Do you feel you've got to a point, though, to that point about the headlines, which is clearly so important for the future of the company, do you feel you've got to a point where you can say, we're stable for this period of time, where you can tell people that?
You know, we can certainly focus on the things that we can control. There's a lot of things externally that I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen with Microsoft or any other number of companies that may influence how those headlines shape up. But the motivating part is to focus on what we can control, and we are right on the cusp of some really, really important announcements. In fact, we just finished a quarter, or almost finished a quarter, which had some amazing new launches. We have launched market reserve pricing in search. That was the last major feature of our search platform that was not competitive with Google, and it does it in a different and in feedback from customers, more innovative way in terms of how we handle minimum bids. We're just rolling that out much more broadly to all of our search keywords, and we have a new product that replaces Content Match, which is this Yahoo version of AdSense for content in a much, much better way. And we've announced AMP, which will be rolling out in late Q3 or Q4. So we are right on the cusp of that, and that's hopefully that will change a little bit of the focus to being squarely in the zone of how Yahoo can help the industry and help the shareholders really drive the next innovation and next stair step of that.
Going to land more playing with that as well. Gentlemen,
This is a advertising and content 3.0 question. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like most of what is being presented online now in terms of content is linear. And there was some experiments with interactive programming and more engaging media content. And so the question is, what is Yahoo doing to encourage creative content community to develop new formats and new content platforms which engage the audience more in the content rather than just a simple linear program?
did everyone get that? The question being, what's Yahoo doing to encourage the creative community to create more interactive forms of content rather than just sort of linear content against which you might address advertising?
Sure. As the internet evolves to be more of a platform, the kinds of content that can be created is really unlimited, whether it's video formats or moving digital within the space, and as well, much more interactivity. I mean, imagine, just think about the role that the internet has played in this presidential election in terms of not just fundraising, but engagement and mashups. When you think about the placement of one candidate against another, we've been very, very involved with that in creating platforms to attract development, engagement, and interactive responses. And we feel like video, we'll stop talking about video like it's a separate thing. It'll be like the air that we breathe. It's part of the DNA. We don't talk about text that way. And as the broadband improves, and as the capability and access of the ingenuity of consumers all over the world, of developers all over the world to create very relevant products, we think it's just going to mushroom. It's already started.
That was one of my questions, so go for it. Talk a little bit about the mobile space and what Yahoo's doing there.
So mobile is a huge priority for Yahoo and an area I'm pleased to say that we lead in. We are trying to recognize the differences in a mobile experience versus PC, and also recognize what's similar. So what's similar is that the kinds of things people engage in are search and mail, communication with friends, shopping, a lot of the same key apps that are important in PC. What's different is a number of things. One, in terms of the consumer, the form factor is such that the experience, if you just took the PC experience and put it online, is a terrible experience. So we start with the concept for the products called mobile first, which is how would you engage a search engine experience or an email experience or a homepage experience that takes advantage of that through a carousel or through almost a semantic search of understanding what the query is based on being on a mobile phone and delivering results and images, multimedia results in a way that adds value. So we start with that. A second way it's different with consumers, there's an immediacy to it and a level of personalization. When you're searching for something, when you're on your mobile, you're usually communicating, you're looking something up, or you're trying to be entertained while you're waiting for a subway. So we try to think about how do we make sure that the advertising and the content reflects that immediacy. It's also very personal. Consumers will tolerate even less of things that aren't relevant to them on their phone. Think about it, there's some great stats about more than half the people that own mobile devices sleep with their mobile device and don't let their spouse look at their mobile device. So there's a protection and a personalization to it that is highly, highly important. Another way it's different is, we've talked about fragmentation and friction. In the mobile area, you have hundreds of carriers, thousands of devices, hundreds of browsers. It is very, very complicated to get a clean user experience across multiple devices. We have launched, we announced at CES in January, a widget platform where developers can write once and be on multiple apps and some lighthouse customers with MySpace and eBay. So we're very, very focused on how do you take the scale of mobile, which there are 2 billion phones in the world and hundreds of millions now internet enabled. How do you take that scale and take advantage of what the consumer really wants in terms of immediacy and take the friction out of the process for both consumers, advertisers, and ultimately developers. We're well on our way toward that. I'd say the ad market is not very developed yet in mobile. Even the most mobile-rich environments like Japan, the ad markets are not very large yet because ultimately that consumers engaging and understanding the content best will lead to the advertising. So we're for our part, in addition to focusing on the content and the experiences for consumers. We're focusing on business development deals with the whole ecosystem of carriers and handsets. We've gone in the last 18 months from having our mobile content offerings available for 6 million consumers around the web around the world to 600 million. We've got 100x improvement in the footprint of consumers that can actually access these things, and have won some major high-profile partnerships like T-Mobile. So we're very much in the works there. I'd say mobile is a number of years behind the PC in terms of the ad environment, but we do offer display advertising on mobile in 24 countries. We want search in 3 countries, and we're very aggressively trying to pursue a global opportunity where mobile devices will be the starting point for the vast majority of consumers on the internet in the next few years.
I see quite a few more questions, but I also see the signs that we have to wrap up. Sue, as always, you're very candid, and I'm sure everyone enjoyed hearing from you as much as I did. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking